I'm talking about Parliament and someone that used to sit in it. Cast your mind back to 2010 and you'll remember when the Conservatives teamed up with the Liberal Democrats. The coalition government was the first since the Second World War and gave loads of Liberal politicians the chance to showcase their talents in government. One was the Liberal Democrat MP for Norfolk North, Norman Lamb, who served as Minister of State for Care and Support from 2012 until the end of the coalition in 2015. He stood to be leader of the party in 2015, losing out to Tim Farron. I'm very pleased to say that Sir Norman joins me live from Norfolk. Welcome to the programme, Norman. Thank you for joining me. Now, I wanted to ask...
Very good to be with you.
I noticed that you grew up in Watford, which is a place that's very dear to my heart. Tell me a bit more about your upbringing and what kind of made you want to get into politics.
Well, I was born in Watford. You're absolutely right. We lived in Radlett, but family moved when I was only 2, so I can't really claim any great association with Watford. We moved to Guildford in Surrey. My dad was a meteorologist with the Met Office, Meteorological Office, Government Service, and then actually subsequently set up the Climatic Research Unit at the University of East Anglia, which you might have noticed has been in the news. It was the place where the emails were leaked just before the Copenhagen Climate Summit back in, I think, about 2006. He had by that stage died, but he set it all up, and he was a world-renowned climate scientist, and that's actually what brought us to Norfolk. And I became a lawyer. I worked as a solicitor, a partner of a law firm in Norfolk, and then stood for Parliament, getting elected finally after 11 years of trying in 2001.
Well, Norfolk is absolutely lovely. North is one of those places that you go and then you just literally do not want to leave. It's such a stunning place, isn't it? I mean, talk to me a bit more.
It's magnificent.
Yeah, it is. It's a stunning place, isn't it? Most people who go there just simply don't want to leave it. Tell me a little bit more about the 2010 election and the decision to team up with the Conservatives. What did you think about that? Do you feel that was the right choice?
Yeah, I mean, it's of course the party, the Lib Dems, were condemned by very many people for entering coalition with the Conservatives. I continue to assert that it was the right decision to take. The country was in a difficult position. It was in the aftermath of the crash in 2008. There were significant economic challenges, a massive deficit, and I think, the responsible thing to do when no party had a majority in Parliament was to seek to agree a programme with the largest party, which happened to be the Conservatives. Now, obviously, there were significant differences between the two parties, but actually, it's what happens in most European countries. Parties in systems that often are proportional, where that often no party has an overall majority. Coalitions are commonplace. It's not usual in this country. It was the first coalition in the post-war period, but I think it was the responsible thing to do. And I think if we walked away from it, we would have flunked our responsibility. Now, it led to us alienating many of our natural supporters, and it was a crushing challenge for the party. And the party was, I think, it came close to destruction. We lost most of our seats, left with just 9 seats in 2015. So I think we always felt that this was a massive experiment. Could a small party enter a coalition in this country under the voting system we've got and survive? And the answer was almost no, it couldn't. But despite that, I continue to believe that we did the right thing. And I think, although we made significant mistakes and the whole issue of student tuition fees cost us dearly, I also think we did some very good things in government, and I think we punched above our weight. And I think we actually had some extremely impressive ministers as part of that government who, achieved significant policy advances in the areas that they were responsible for.
Do you think that the party could ever recover from that? Because that was quite a blow, wasn't it? There was, as you said, the whole student loan debacle, which sort of saw the Liberal Democrats backtrack. And then, of course, there was the coalition where you lost a lot of your heartland support because you were suddenly teaming up with the Conservatives. And now the Liberal Democrats, where are they? What are they doing? I don't really hear much from them.
Well, I should say, Nana, that I've actually stepped back from politics and I'm no longer a member of the party. I chair an NHS mental health trust, and I felt it was appropriate not to continue to be involved in politics, but I, of course, remain interested. So the party, is in a much diminished state. I think it's important for the country to have an alternative to the two main parties, but I think it will take some time for it to find a route back to relevance and to any possibility of power. However, politics, I think, is volatile, and I don't think you can rule out a point coming at some point in the future where people tire of this government. It's what happens after years in power. And when that moment comes, then if the party can, in a sense, offer the country a coherent message, what it stands for, what its vision is for our country, then there is a chance again that it could win seats and potentially share power again. The idea of it governing on its own is for the birds for the moment, but sharing power becomes a possibility at a time when people tire of this government, which is something that always happens in democracies.
Now, you were made Minister of State for Care, weren't you, in 2012? And the role you're currently doing now, is that kind of linked because of your background in healthcare?
It is, yeah. In my time in Parliament, I became increasingly focused on issues relating to mental health. We had our own family experiences of mental health, like most families, of course, across our country. It hadn't had the attention I don't think it deserves. There wasn't a sense that, people with mental ill health were treated equally. Under the previous Labour government, they had introduced maximum waiting time standards into the NHS, the 4-hour A&E standard, the cancer waiting time standard, that if you have suspected cancer, you'll see a specialist within 2 weeks and you'll have your operation within a defined number of days. These were all good things, but they left out mental health. And so there was this awful sense that mental health was the Cinderella service. It was the forgotten part of the NHS. And I found myself advocating for mental health within government, arguing the case that there should be equality, equal treatment between physical health and mental health. And so when I chose in 2019 to stand down from Parliament, the idea of working in the NHS, chairing a mental health trust, was very appealing. It's an opportunity to make a difference to people's lives. And I have a very, strongly held view that we need to intervene earlier to support people at an earlier stage to stop health deteriorating, to give people the chance of a good life that perhaps the rest of us take for granted, and to lock up fewer people. Our system of mental health care detains very many people under the Mental Health Act in a way that I think sometimes breaches their human rights. So I think, this is a job, a role that invigorates me and excites me and gives an opportunity to make a difference on the ground.
Now, I know that obviously you try and all the things you're doing are looking after the quality of people's lives as well, but you also advocate for reform of drug and assisted dying, the law that surrounds that. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, I feel very strongly that at the end of the day, it should be our decision about our own lives rather than the state's decision. And I had always voted in Parliament whenever I had the opportunity to introduce laws to provide for assisted dying. It's, of course, really important that there are real safeguards in place to avoid families exploiting vulnerable loved ones. But I think the fundamental right that we all have is that if we're dying, if we have some sort of terminal illness, we should be able to make a decision ourselves to end our lives at a time of our choosing rather than suffering sometimes horrific pain at the end of our life. Give people the opportunity to die in dignity at a time of their own choosing. And the thing that I find really fascinating is that there is massive public support for reform. Every opinion poll that's carried out shows across the political spectrum very high levels of support for introducing laws to provide for assisted dying. And yet successive governments refuse to legislate for this. And Parliament itself, members of Parliament themselves, I think, are also behind public opinion on this and have refused to reform the law. The lobby in Parliament of MPs that have faith, and faith of course that I fully respect, but I think it often leads to members of Parliament voting against reform. For me, if someone of faith objects, that is absolutely their right, but it shouldn't stop other people exercising what I think is their right to end their life if they face a terminal illness.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're able to sort of understand that when it comes to animals, but for humans, we seem to struggle with
Yes.
that. I mean, I know that you had a stroke in 2018, and then, of course, you left sort of politics, the big scene. So what are you up to now? Give us a brief summary of what you're doing now and whether you actually miss being in politics in the way you were.
So yes, I had a wake-up call in 2018. I woke with double vision. It lasted about 40 minutes, and it was very shocking to be told the next day after an MRI scan that it was a very minor stroke. Now, I think the truth is that I had been pushing myself probably a bit beyond the limit. The public's view of politicians is often a fairly negative one, but there are many politicians across the political spectrum who work extraordinarily hard and are dedicated to what they're trying to do for the public good as they see it. Now, I, for a period of 18 and a half years in Parliament, had been working fairly ludicrous hours. I was deeply committed to trying to represent my constituency in the way that I felt was appropriate, supporting people, constituents in their hour of need in all sorts of different circumstances. But it, I think, took its toll. So for that and for other reasons, I had disagreed with my party over how we responded to Brexit. I felt that we had to accept the result and to negotiate a deal that brought the country together. And that left me feeling quite isolated within my parliamentary party. So I decided to step down at the 2019 election. I now, as I said earlier, chair a mental health trust in the NHS. I also chair the Children and Young People's Mental Health Coalition, which is a coalition of a whole load of charitable organisations working in children's mental health. And I chair an advisory board for a digital mental health company, which is a really interesting area. This is a way of supporting people with their mental ill health by digital means, access through your mobile phone to counselling, to moderated chat rooms where you can talk to others who may be experiencing similar issues as yourself, and then access to a whole load of information and advice and guidance about how you can help yourself. So that's a really interesting role as well. And we set up our own mental health fund in my county of Norfolk, myself and my wife Mary, and that gives money to small grassroots organisations working in children's mental health. So with all of that, I keep myself pretty busy, but I have reclaimed my weekends.
Wow.
Apart from that is, Nana, speaking to you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. Wow, you're still really busy doing stuff. It's really lovely to talk to you. Don't wear yourself out and enjoy Norfolk. I don't blame you.